5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're now tuned into the 411 podcast and reading Between the Wines, powered by the Black Diamond Consultations Network. More than a podcast, this is a sanctuary for self-discovery, healing, and personal growth. Here, we explore what it means to live debt-free, not just financially, but spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Every episode is part of a journey across our weekly mentorship series: Spiritual Sundays, Mental Mondays, Transformational Tuesdays, Wind Down Wednesdays, Coaching Sessions Thursdays, and Financial Fridays. Each day holds space for wisdom, clarity, and real conversation. So grab your journal, pour your glass, and prepare to go beyond the surface. Because here, we don't just talk, we transform. And now, here's your guide through it all: entrepreneur, mentor, and founder of Black Diamond Consultations, Laren Gaines.
Welcome on in. Welcome into another episode of the 411 podcast. We are here, Transformational Tuesday, and let me tell you, there definitely has been some transformation, and it definitely will be some transformation after this show is over. Because this week has been it's been one of those weeks where I've been hustling and, you know, doing the thing. And of course, I could not do this without each and every one of you. But most importantly, I could not do this without the love, support, guidance from my executive producer. I want to give a very special thank you to my executive producer, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, for giving me another opportunity, giving me the strength, the courage, the wisdom to continuously come out here and give y'all this 411 podcast. And of course, everyone out there who is watching, I want to say good morning to all of you all. Thank you for rocking with me first thing in the morning. I appreciate you, my Facebook family, my YouTube family. Very special thank you to my guests who come in and, support and rock with me. Sasha Nicole, what's going on? How you doing? We got author Birdman 313 tomorrow. We had Jorge Ernesto Lozano in yesterday, and tonight, Transformational Tuesday, we have Antonio Armenio Trujillo coming in just a few minutes. So I think we're ready to do this. For those of you out there, please hit that like button, use your virtual voice, drop it in the comments. Let me know exactly where you are calling from. So let's get on into this. Y'all know this is my favorite segment, Song of the Day. All right. So we're talking about your daily routines. And sometimes our daily routines and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, or the things that we don't do on a day-to-day basis, will actually end up telling on us. And it shows up in reality. So, Song of the Day, Hustlin' by Rick Ross. And every day we hustling. At least that's exactly what I'm doing. So the rhetorical question that I have to put out there for each and every one of you is, how bad do you want it? And if are you hustling? Are you grinding? Are you perfecting your craft? Or are you studying? Are you watching what you do, how you speak, how you move? Are you protecting to you? See, I spoke about this a couple nights before, that do we want to be like everybody else? For those of you out there, if you're scrolling on the gram, on social media, is it unique, or are you copying what somebody else is doing? Did you see what somebody else had and now you needed to go run and buy it? See, it's called being extraordinary. If you want those extra things in life, you have to be extraordinary, and you got to do something a little bit extra and different than the next person. Otherwise, you're just going to be some copycat, some, made up version of So this is Transformational Tuesday. So I'm going to leave you with some wisdom here. See, I always knew that I was different, and I, stayed true to being. I was very secret about my moves. Someday, to still to this day, I'm not going to broadcast everything, and I'm not going to put everything out there, even though I'm here to it. So hustle. That's the key word tonight. Grind. Make it do what it do. Know that if you don't wake up and you go through the regular routine journey, you're going to end up being just like everybody else, and you're going to get what everybody else is getting. So you want something a little bit different. You're going to have to be different. And being different requires you to push through and do something a little bit extra, because yeah, I can just go out and we can go out and we can be just like everybody else, and there's no effort in that. There really isn't. But if you want to be different and you want that extra, you want that icing on the cake, it requires you to do something extra in order for you to become extraordinary and show up differently. Remember, the things that you do on a daily basis, the things that you do on a weekly basis, the things that you do on a monthly basis, it's going to show up. People can tell. People, when they look at you, when they see you coming, when they hear your name, think, wow, this person is extra, this person is different. Or when they speak your name, when they think of you, do you just blend in with the rest of the crowd? You know how some people say on you being a little extra? It's okay to be a little extra. But what does your extra look like? That again. They say that, oh, this one's doing the most, or this one over here, they're being a little extra. It's okay to be a little extra, but what does your extra actually look like? What does it sound like? Hmm. Song of the day, Hustlin' by Rick Ross. Now, as we continue on this Transformational Tuesday, this good Transformational Tuesday, I'm going to bring in a special guest, friend of the show. He's been here before, but this time it's going to be a little bit different. Remember, I spoke about being a little bit extra and being different. There's something about this cat that is going to give us different vibes tonight. So let's get into this here. We have special guests joining in for Transformational Tuesday, Mr. Antonio Trujillo. So y'all go ahead and give a round of applause as we go ahead and bring Mr. on bring Mr. Antonio up.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome, welcome on in to this Transformational Tuesday. How are you?
Good yourself? I just want to
I'm
say I am honored to be a part of your show again. You know what I mean? Be a returning guest, and I just want to say give you the much love as I can, man.
most definitely. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Of course, I could not, have this wonderful dialogue and conversation without you. And thank you for the support, the flyers and all of that stuff. You got some real dope stuff out there. I appreciate that.
And it's all the
Yeah.
folk behind the scenes, man. It's
I'm
all the help and assistance. It's all about building relationships with folks. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it ain't easy. Some
No,
people, you know, they make it seem easy, but it takes a lot to make some of this stuff go around, doing the records and the promotions and all of those great things. So
a lot of
I,
sacrifices.
I, I respect, yeah, the craft there. So show tradition. I always, for some reason, I like the weather. I like the hot weather, and maybe I was like a weather person. So let us know exactly where you are calling from and what's the weather like over there.
I'm calling from Pueblo, Colorado, and right now it's about 80 degrees. It's pretty
Damn.
nice out. It's spring is near. It's pretty much here. it's the time, you know what I mean? It's that season again. Got lizards in our front yard. It's amazing, man. Nice and hot.
Man.
Perfect time to get out and do something different every day.
So it's 80 already. So in the summertime, what's the temperature like then?
Mm, hits hundreds. Hits 90 to 100.
And where's this at again?
Public Colorado.
I didn't think that Colorado hit temps like that. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
that's up.
Oh man, it's the summers are terrible. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Really. I know the
Yeah.
winters are brutal, but I didn't know the summers jump off like that. So 80, when did it sit like warm up? Like around what
When
month?
when does it turn?
When does it
Um,
start getting like
I'd say
80s?
like last month.
Really?
Last month we were hitting that. Yep.
So in February? Wow, that's
Yep.
crazy. All right,
See,
that's
and we,
something
we had
new.
we had an odd winter this year. Odd winter. It
Mm.
was odd. It was hot. It wasn't as cold as I expected it to be.
Okay, so that basically we got your winter then, because this winter was out of
Yeah,
control.
you guys must have caught wind.
Out of control. All right, so what's going on? I know you got a new album out. Talk to us
Yeah,
about that.
released October 1st. Aftermath the Mythic 2025, 2026, and a new label. I rebranded,
Okay.
changed up. You know, we went from Unity Infinite. We had a lot of people with our group, a lot of international folk, and now we freed up the roster. You know what I mean? It's just my cousin, Corbin, and me, and that makes the three duo. So you know what I mean? The triple threat. So and yeah, we're under Rogue Squire now. Released
Mhm.
a new album, and I'm working on a book. I'm like
Okay.
in the first stages of writing my first discography on my whole collection for now. By the time I turn 30, so you know what I mean. I'll have all this ready with another album, re-release of my original, but going in there with a different perspective. You know, approaching something familiar, but making it in a sense unfamiliar, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Diving deep into
Mhm.
the deeper realms. But no, I've been working with my cousin, getting him going. He just
Mhm.
released a single, The
That's what's up.
Return.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
My
So
cousin is a faithful man. I tell you what, he's one of them dudes, man. He's a good guy.
you know what? We might need to get him on here. I'll talk to you afterwards. But yeah, I might have a spot for him to be on this series, the same series. So yeah, we'll chop it up afterwards. But um, you spoke about some things, freeing up your roster. This is your record label, or you're signed to another record label?
No, just a South phone, you know what I mean? Got my own independent. So
Okay.
it's just rebranded and we changed it up a little bit, you know what I mean? We left what was behind because we're a lot older now and you know we can reflect, but
Hmm.
we don't want to I guess you can say um showcase, you know what I mean? Showcase our younger days when we were just learning and stuff, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so this is all with a whole new approach, working with different producers, working with different mentors, you know what I mean? Just really in touch with who's around.
Okay, that's what's up. I know. I want to touch two bases. I know you said that you freed up some international artists. I guess you were working with artists
Yes.
internationally. I work with some people on this podcast internationally, and it can become a challenge. Let me tell you, with the
It could
time
be the
zone
language
difference.
barrier and everything.
Yeah. So I've had some disappointments from working with international people, but I will tell you that I've had built great relationships in France and Belgium,
That's awesome.
South Korea, I believe. So there are some artists that are, on point when it comes to crossing the international boundaries. So for you, what were you disappointed with that, or was
No,
it
we
just
we had a we had a falling out.
okay?
That's it's kind of why the reason I released that Fallout album is because of the whole issue I had with my partner. My close partner when I first started in 2022. You love Bebo. we had a falling out, and it was over beat purchasing and licensing,
Mm,
and another guy jumping on board, and you know how it goes. Somebody wants to collect the money, and somebody has to pay, and so it had to be me. And so we had a falling out. So we all came together, just my close people, and we decided that we need to change up. We need to make this. We need to make a different movement, because Unity Infinite was all about uniting everybody and keeping everybody together. But then
mhm,
when you realize that folks tend to take advantage of you, or they can't deliver, and because at the end of the day, it's a business, you know what I mean? And so
mm.
you gotta look at it like, you gotta have something on hand ready for the people to experience when you're an artist. And that gets tough, and that gets very difficult. So narrowing your circle you know helps with that perspective.
Yeah, yeah. My philosophy today, I learned. I basically knew it all my life, but the pressures of wanting to be popular, wanting people to like me, crossing the boundaries of being a people pleaser, you end up falling into these traps and getting wrapped up with the wrong crowd and start to do what other people do. But for me, after going through some of the issues that I've went through, very simple. I'm a minimalist today. Less is more. The less that I have, the more that I have. So in this business, sometimes it's less is more. Like you look at the artists who are out there who are on top. We see them when they're on top, but we don't really see what happens behind closed doors. We don't see the backstabbing. We don't see, you know, a lot of things. And a lot of the downfall of some artists and people, we don't just have the music, is when you got your circle too big and you're stretched like this and you don't know who's really down for you and who's not. So, in order for you to have a good rap on it, um, I keep my friend today. I'm okay with that. People used to make fun of me for keeping my friends to a minimum, but I was the one who was actually winning in the long run.
I agree with you on that one, because it's good to be a lone wolf, you know what I mean, when it comes to certain circumstances. And I can agree with you 100%, because things are a lot better. You know, the people that we work with now, they're more experienced, and so they're I guess you can say they're guiding us on maintaining what we're doing. You know what I mean? Trying to keep it
Hmm.
going, trying to keep going the ball rolling, keep going forward with everything,
Yeah.
and never retracting.
They also say that you are only an average. And I've said this plenty of times here on the podcast. You are only an average of the five closest people that you surround yourself with. So, for people out there listening, look at your circle. Think about the five people that you interact with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You're only an average of them. That keyword average is deep. It hit me deep and I was like, okay, so I'm not better than them. I'm only an average. Interesting. So that's why I like to surround myself by people who know a hell of a lot more than I do.
Yep.
Because you're
And that's what
always
I'm
learning.
starting to learn. Yeah, I'm starting to learn that as I'm getting older. I'm starting to realize, the elder are a lot more wiser. You know what I mean? Comes to certain circumstances when people
Yeah.
are off on a whole different agenda.
Mm. Now, I know you were saying you were cleaning things up. This is part of the whole transformational process. Just, stepping into the person who you want to be. You may not be that person yet, but you can see yourself. You can see, like, in the future. Some people can see themselves in the future. They can visualize, they can go into a meditative state of what they want. They're just not it yet, but they know what they want. So, do you ever go back though, instead of going to the future? Do you ever go back and look at some of the things that you've either recorded, whether it's photo shoots, whatever it is? Do you look back and be like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have done that"? The older version of you looks at the younger version as like, "Yeah, that wasn't
Yep.
cool."
because when you realize there's consequences to things, and when it comes down to stuff like that, you realize, you live and you learn. And I had to learn from experience, and there's circumstances where um, the government was involved, the feds, I guess you can say, and it wasn't my fault. But what happens when you're on the internet and somebody takes most of your photos on your account and releases and makes threats and stuff, it comes back to me instead of them. And there's consequences to things. So, living and experiencing what I'm experiencing now compared to then,
Hmm.
it makes me realize, because now, I'm a family man. I'm focused on my daughter, my family, and just making sure everybody is, able to strive and prosper. You know what I mean? Make sure everybody's happy. And so, it's tough. It's tough, but when you see yourself in the future and you realize that this is your life, don't get me wrong, but this is your daughter's life now. You know what I mean? I want her to follow my footsteps, join choir and stuff like that. So that's why I work with my cousin. I coach him. It builds me up. Work with other producers, and it helps me learn. You know what I mean? It helps me just absorb everything and try to replicate it in a sense. You know what I mean? Based on what you know with
Right,
knowledge.
right, right, right. You said something that is so important. Is you basically introduce like that legacy talk when you realize that it's no longer just about you anymore. Like whether it's family, it's friends, passing something down, creating a name, building a brand. It's that legacy talk that you started to open up the door for that. So I'm going to go down this path. I'm a financial coach. I I I'm actually very intrigued to know exactly what artists think when it comes to money, because I look up to certain artists and I like the longevity. I'm very inspired by the longevity. My favorite artist, I remember 1991. I'm not going to get into it. Those of you who watch me, you know who I'm talking about. But this specific artist is still relevant today, from 1991 when I was 11 years old until where I'm at here today at 45 years old. I'm just like just amazed. The ups, downs. And then I look at other artists who come out and maybe their career isn't that long. Um, the one hit wonders, all of those things out there. I've studied this since I was 11 years old. So in the music industry, especially with independent artists and things like that, when you're hustling and doing things on your own, how important is the financial aspect?
Very.
Does that play a does that play a role in you staying around for however many years you've been around?
It does, because basically, that's the backbone of what we have to offer. You know what I mean? So what I've learned and doing what I'm doing is, it costs money in order to make money, and you have to sacrifice a lot in order to get to where you're at. And as far as I've gotten, I sacrificed a lot of money, but I've also made money. You know what I mean? And I interact with startups, and I try to build these relationships with them and see what they have to offer. But what everything's about is, it's about funds. You know what I mean? You got to have the money. Money talks, and I'm learning that. And when it comes to funds, though, you just got to capitalize. You honestly just got to capitalize and figure out what's out there. You know what I mean? And try to relate to that and build yourself up. But when it comes to making music, you're not going to be rich. You know what I mean? And how I've seen it is how you said it. It's longevity. You know what I mean? It's all about how long you can stay, how long you keep that lifeline alive, how long you can support your family, and how long you can become the person you're wanting to be. You know what I mean? Your greatest version. And so it's very important.
Y- you know, um, you said something about becoming rich. I think that a lot of the mainstream artists, I would say that the artists that have made it, they're on top. The jewelry, the cars, all of that stuff. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's really making it, or do you think that there's more to that story?
I feel like a lot of that is just, it's like Instagram's like best way they can describe it is like it's like a like a show. You know what I mean? It's a whole different environment. The internet, TikTok, everything. It's all about presentation. You know what I mean? And when you look back at something like that, you know, you realize who's real and who's not. Based
Mhm.
on daily routines, as you suggested earlier, and the person they present themselves as. You know what I mean? And like when we talked about narrowing our circles and stuff like that, it all relates to something like that. And it's one of those things.
I'm gonna ask you this question here. Would you rather have the clothes, cars, jewelry? Is that important to you, or is it important to build businesses?
I
What do you?
think I think it's all about the presentation, you know what I mean? It's all about that. So, I invested in my image, to present myself a certain way and to be a certain
Mhm,
way, you know what I mean? It takes it takes a lot of effort though to figure out the person you really are though. I've been to numerous therapy sessions just trying to figure out, going through like tough times and stuff like that. And to me, what's more important is to know that, I have something to show for, all the stuff I've earned because I've earned everything I've gotten, you know? Like didn't grow up having money, you know what I mean? Nothing was given, it was earned. And so I feel like image is important, but if you look at J. Cole, artists like him,
mhm.
you realize, or Jay-Z, you look back and you're Eminem, they're minimalists. You know what I mean? They're not out there flexing $1 million chains and they can't afford to buy a house and it's a whole trail of dishonesty.
That is a good point that you just basically opened up the door. Pay very close attention to that, and you touch base on the minimalist aspect as well for some of those artists out there. I'm gonna get off of this because I'm very passionate about being a minimalist, and I got kind of pissed off when I realized what happens behind the scenes in the music industry and how it's portrayed a certain way. And what I believe, and again, this is just my belief system, is that a lot of what we see on TV, what we see on Instagram, what we see on different platforms, that is not real. And
Hmm.
what we do is we program the younger generation to want those things. So instead of wanting to learn how to build a record company, wanting to learn how to be the CEO of that record company, these people they grow up wanting the chains, wanting the cars, wanting the jewelry. And in most cases, the artists that are rocking that stuff and they got the, stack of money, a lot of that stuff is not real. Either it's borrowed, rented.
Inherited.
Yeah, right. That's another thing too. When people fall into money, and that yeah, that's the kicker right there. Majority of the time when people inherit money, by the time it gets to the next generation, it's completely lost. You spoke about legacy. So people who hustle, that's the theme of the night. People who struggle, people who strive and climb their way to the top, their I guess I want to say their legacy extends, to multiple generations. By about the third or fourth generation, get a little hairy because it's just given to the next generation. So when money's just given to the next generation, you have to make sure that, people are disciplined and they are well educated on financial literacy. Because think about it, when something's just handed to you, you don't have to work for it. You might take
Mm-mm.
something you might take some things for granted. So, um, yeah, I know I went on my little tangent with that, but go ahead. We'll go ahead and take a pause in this moment. If you could please go ahead and let everybody know where they can follow you. You can name your album. I want to get into some of the tracks that are most important to you on that album, and your different.
Okay. So, you guys want to check me out? The master link that I do have is on Instagram. You'll find everything there, articles to songs to albums to any information you want to get from behind the scenes. And visit me on YouTube, Divine Infinite, my handle. Um, and check me out on Apple Music, um, and everything else. All the streaming platforms that United Masters has to offer for us.
All right, that's what's up. That's what's up. Now, the name. Um, how'd you come up with the name for yourself? Oh, you still with us?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. We're
I
back though.
Yeah, you're back though. So how'd you come up with the name for yourself?
Divine Infinite is, to me, it's all about, you know, when it first started, it was a facade. You know what I mean? I guess you can say until I actually step foot into realizing, the person I'm trying to become. You know what I mean? More spiritual. Spiritual alignment, and you know, just showcasing this mindset that I have and trying to release it into the world and so they can explore, and go through my shoes and see how in the beginning, you know, I wasn't necessarily chasing applause. You know what I mean? I wasn't. I was just trying to get my foot in the door, and get approval.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And trying to build myself up. So Divine Infinite has a whole spiritual meaning behind it, and it has an acronym AGYT, Menti Griffin Yin Yang. I thought it's a whole death, before dishonor type thing. You know what I mean? Victory and knowledge.
Now, that's interesting. This isn't Spiritual Sunday. This is Transformational Tuesday. But I was sitting down with Seisha Blanco, who's another artist who's on this series. So y'all should, for coaching sessions Thursday because you're from Seisha Blanco. And I talked about how being an artist, you know, a rapper, sometimes our language is a little interesting. And when you're being, how do you tie that in when it comes to spirituality? The I want to say the GOAT when it comes to that is Tupac. Like
Yep.
you could be listening to his records and be like, he say some
Mhm.
crazy things, but the way he tied in the spirituality, it was just amazing. And forget about him rapping, just him talking in general was just amazing. You can tell just a spiritual being. So how important is that for you to be spiritual? Which I know it's important, but just go into it a little bit more. And how do you make sure that your music aligns so that you can heal and get to the people that need to get to it?
So a lot of that I owe to my mom because she is one big reason why I'm involved with my faith. Uh, our Lord Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And if it weren't for her, the lifestyle that I brought myself into when it comes to music, because there's a whole misconception where hip hop music and rap is violent, and at the same time, you can see it. There is violence in it, but you know, not everyone's violent, and that is longevity. That's another bit of longevity. But with me, the faith and having that and my cousin, what I mean, them two together, I'm always getting they'll send me scriptures, they'll send me posts and stuff like that. And then when I do go to church with my daughter and stuff like that, it's just if it weren't for my mom, I don't think that'd be possible for me. So I owe it all to her. And, I live by. you know, just being a morale person, being a good person, trying to give back to people, you know what I mean, trying to share knowledge to folk, and just try to connect and be a good guy. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
all. That's what I'm all about. And in the past, it was bad because I was getting out of that rut, and faith wasn't there for me. But when I started listening, paid more attention, that's when I realized, you look back and you see things and you're like, I could have done it different, but I'm gonna do it different now. You know what I mean? I'm gonna take that.
Mm,
I'm gonna take that stance. I'm gonna stand on my feet, and I'm gonna approach it just like on my album Aftermath the Mythic. You know what I mean? One side was just that caliber, that darkness. And then one side was just enlightenment when commendation dropped. You know what I mean? It was just all about that. The whole depiction of the commendation was just so much enlightenment. You know what I mean? The green, the grass behind me, the water, you know what I mean, the bridge, versus condemnation where it was just like darkness and you can see it. You can see the shift, you know what I mean? You can see
mm,
the transformation there, and it's like, if it weren't for like I was saying, my mom, it's not possible.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I paid attention, I listened, and I got to where I'm at. My daughter, she's heavily involved. She watches videos, my mom gets her all set up, and it's an honor to to have faith like that. You know what I mean? To be a part of, something that loves you, you know what I mean? Someone that loves you.
I believe that every family has a chosen one. You've heard this term chosen one. There's always someone in a generation that is responsible for making sure that other generations get it. So it sounds like maybe you have been that chosen one in your family and your dynamic to make sure that the spiritual aspect of that is passed on to legacy to the next, to the next generation. That's my belief that there's always one person in the family that gets selected as the chosen one. So
An
now,
honor. That is breaking the chains, is what I call it, breaking the chains, man.
absolutely,
The
absolutely.
generational curse.
Uh, what I
That's what I
speak of,
call it.
I
On
speak
my
of,
end.
yeah, I speak about that a lot too, and you know, we can get on that topic too. Breaking the generational curses when you don't know why you're different. You're called to do something different. You feel different. You know what your family does because everybody in your family does it, but you are just that oddball. You're just that, some people call it the black sheep of the family. Something is just different about you. And even though you know it's so easy to go along and do what everybody else in the family is doing, for some reason, when you've tried it, it still didn't work for you. Either there you had more obstacles, they could get away with it, but you can't. Why is it that? So you just back away and you say, you know what, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and do something a little bit different. So everyone just think back, if you were in this situation where you understood where you started to break generational curses, when you knew that, wow, I'm just doing something different, God is telling me to move in this direction, even though I know that everybody is doing that on the left, I'm going to move here and do something different. And then what happens is, in the beginning, people in your family might look at you like you're crazy, like, all right, whatever, this one is an oddball, or this one is, square, whatever. But then things start to shift. It's just this spiritual shift where people start to say, okay, wait a minute, he might be onto something. She might be onto something. Maybe I should start paying attention. So I don't know if you've experienced anything like that, but um, that's just, again, what I believe when it comes to breaking generational curses.
I love that. I love that because that's so true, man.
So now let's talk about your album. Give me your favorite, your top three records, just the titles and stuff.
Individual songs or just the whole thing, whole project.
Individual songs off of this new album.
This
What?
one here,
Yeah.
Glitch, Aftermath intro, and Inept.
Okay, so let's talk about glitch. What's the concept behind that?
So glitch was all based on a quote seen on Facebook that my teacher posted, and when I look back at it, it forced me to make something similar to a song I made in the past, which was Imprint. And so it was like wanting that same vibe, bring it back with better vocals, you know, better ways to approach it with a high quality beats and stuff like that. So and basically the whole song's about me being a glitch when it comes to reality. You know what I mean? Like there's that movie. It's a kids movie, and they're I think it's Wreck It Ralph, or it's one of the ones with Penelope. I forgot. Penelope, she's the glitch in the game. You know what I mean? She's cruising around a little car, she's glitching out. You know what I mean? I see myself like that. You know what I mean? That's what I see myself in reality. You know what I mean? I have to put myself out there and show people that it's okay to be different in a world where they want you to be normal. You know what I mean? But I'm not talking different as in like being crazy or anything like that. I'm talking different as in being just artistically, you know what I mean? Just
Mm,
showcasing your ability and choosing, because it's a choice to sit there and invest your money into putting in for a beat to get a license, or to sit there and reflect on a song and sit there and write that song, because it takes hours before it's even saying, you know what I mean? And
mm,
so Glitch shows me as a person who, just works outside the normal realm of things.
that's what's up. I love how you go into detail too about the things that it takes with the licensing and however long it takes to write this and upgrading, looking back at what you've been through or how you recorded or what the process was before, and let's do a 2.0 version. Let's do something different. Of course, transforming into something a little bit bigger and better. So I like that. And then you had another record that you spoke about. What was it? Inapt or
Another song on there was Inept, you know what I mean? Just it's a whole lot of just becoming like you're a stain, you know what I mean? And everything you put out, you know what I mean? Just there's just nothing to it. And it seems like you're just you're speaking to you're not speaking to anybody. And so I look back at that, and that's what made us make a new dawn for my cousin, you know what I mean? Because it helped
Mm,
me learn and figure out that not everything needs applause. You know what I mean? Not everything needs
mm,
approval, and
mm.
you have to be the one who brings that to the table. And so Inept was all about that.
I know
It
that's
was
right.
kind of a hint, a hint to New Dawn.
I know
So
that's right. That it's there's a record that I listen is a gospel song. Um it was one of my song of the days on the series too. Encourage yourself. Because you know what? Sometimes you gotta pat yourself on your own back because ain't nobody gonna do it for you. um when you sit around and you put stuff out on social media, when you hang around certain people wanting somebody to big you up, wanting somebody to compliment you on your swag, what you have, you when you walk around like that, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. But if you go ahead and do it for yourself, like, listen, I know that I'm rocking this. I know that I just killed that beat. I know that I just when I walk into a situation, I know all eyes are going to be on me. Not that you're being conceited or anything like that, but sometimes you just gotta pat yourself on the on back and say, "Okay, I got this." I'm gonna write this book. I'm gonna put this new album out, and it's gonna be fire. And I know that it's as long as you rock into it and you like, yeah, I like this, and this is it. This is lit. All right, job done, accomplished. As long as you're happy with it. When you stare in that mirror, people, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking about Transformational Tuesday. When you stare in that mirror, whatever is looking back at you, is it going to be a smile or is it going to be a frown? Sometimes you have pat yourself on the back. Sometimes you have to smile, look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, you are amazing. You are you are fly, everything. So yeah, that's what I think that is. So I like
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. So before we get out of here, I can't believe, it's been, only we got to go and pay bills soon. So let everybody know your name, just run it down again where they can get your new album and all of those things.
My name is Arminio Trujillo. My artistry name is Divine Infinite, and the next edition will be a book by the time I'm 30 years old, and that'll be which is in a year and a half, 2 years. And we're gonna release the Return, our first ever spiritual album. My cousin, so you guys can tune in on the master link on Instagram. So just check everything out, and I'll keep everybody updated. And much love, everybody. It was an honor to be on the show, and I just want to say I love everybody. My parents, if it weren't for the way they raised me, and my aunties and everyone around me in my circle, if it weren't for them, a lot of this wouldn't be possible. So I thank everybody, and I appreciate everyone. So much love to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. And get those streams up because, yeah, go ahead and support, get those streams up because y'all need them. Because
Tune in, guys. A little
I
something for
heard
every
about
one
how
of
much it
y'all.
costs. Yeah, that's what's up. That's up. I did heard about how much costs or how paid when it comes to the streaming. So, got to get those streams up, right?
Yes, sir.
That's no joke.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Thank you so much for joining. I will be in touch. Yeah, because I definitely want to talk to you about possibly getting your artists on here. So, take care. See you.
Much
All
love.
right. Take care, y'all. There you go. That was Mr. Trujillo. Y'all go ahead and support. Great conversation, really, really deep, and we might need to go on Spiritual Sunday. That might be a thing. Spiritual. When you look at his profile, check him out on social media. You can see the spiritual presence. I mean, just look at the album cover. You definitely can see it. So I want to thank you all so much for joining in. I appreciate you. Thank you to my special guests. Thank you to all of the guests who are on this series this week. I definitely do appreciate y'all. Please go ahead and use your virtual voice. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what you liked about our show. Let us know what you didn't like. It is what it is. I definitely read the comments, and you can also text me at 609 200 1098. That is the official 411 podcast hotline. Head on over to laryngaines.com. Sign up for that free 15-minute consultation if you are interested in learning more about debt free living. That's what we speak about here. We speak about debt free living from the spiritual, from the mental, physical, and the financial aspects. And the physical, you got to do something different. If you want to debt free, if you just want to live a better life, it comes down to the physical aspect. You have to do something a little bit different if you want to go ahead and transform your life. And it's not going to happen just by you getting caught up in just the mental, visualizing and thinking about what you want. That is a very important part. It's not going to change if you sit there and pray about it 24/7, although that is very important. And that might be something that you need to do, pray without ceasing. But you definitely have to put the physical, you have to do something. Remember, you have to do something a little bit extra to be considered extraordinary and to get those extraordinary results. Again, head on over to laryngaines.com. If you are interested in learning more about debt free living, you can sign up for that free 15-minute consultation. I am so passionate about it. I love it so much that I created a business, a financial coaching business through Black Diamond Consultations. So, again, thank you so much for joining out there. I appreciate you. Without you, I could not do this. And stay on deck because we getting ready to turn this thing up for Wind Down Wednesday. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good night.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the 411 podcast and Reading Between the Wines, where growth is always on the menu, and every pour reveals a little more truth. The conversation doesn't end here. Have something to say? Want to weigh in on tonight's burning questions? Text us anytime at the official 411 podcast and Reading Between the Wines hotline at 609-200-1098. Stay plugged in across all social media platforms at Laryngains. We're live and in the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube, DLive, Twitch, and Dailymotion. Prefer to listen on the go? The audio version is streaming on most major podcast outlets. Until we meet again, take what you've learned, sip slow, speak truth, and remember, transformation starts within. Powered by the Black Diamond Consultations Network.